So did you find the answer then, Dennis?
Yeah, so that's how he left me with that message. You must let it float in your walk. And that was, a lot of the times, he would give you an idea or a concept or a paradigm, but he wouldn't give you the answer. And you go find it in nature. He'd show you something and say, go find that in nature. So it might be, say, the understanding of the cloacal system where the cheetah grabs the back of an antelope and turns its neck because it's a predator.
You're right.
So that made you understand that the end of the prehensile toe, if I stood on your foot, could make you turn your neck. So then you understood the connectiveness, but he didn't understand things like tension coupled. He didn't understand tensegrity, spinal dynamics in the way that he could translate. So he would translate as a feeling that worked, had an end result, and then left you to, in a sense, I don't like to use the word, but reverse engineer back as to the physiology or the mechanics of how you could make your nervous system do that with ease, because you knew it was effortless. And it always looked like people were doing it for him. And I even thought that initially till I had it done to me. And now I know I can replicate it. I know what it looks like. But that's irrespective. That's on the Budo martial side of it. But part of the journey was the anthropology of being upright. And part of being upright is things to be anti-gravity need to be spiralic. And so when we look at the vestibular apparatus, which is the balance of the inner ear. So this is your ear. I'll turn it this way maybe first. So this is your ear. And this is the canal. This is where you get the wax. And this bone here is called the petrous, or the rock-like part of the bone called the temporal bone, which is this bone here that feeds in to the central axis of the craniosacral mechanism of the brain. And all of these nerves feed from a cave and feed out. So you've got nerves that feed the muscles of the eyes. You've got the optic nerve here, come from the opposite side of the brain. And you've got all these nerves here feeding down to the face and feeding all the teeth. So all the facial muscles, everything is fed by this ganglion of nerves. And inside of here, you've got the vagus nerve, the auditory nerve, and the facial nerve. So when you pull in the ear, you're pulling back to this central part here.
Yeah.
But also, if you understand the techniques as a therapist, I can actually find interosseous torsions in your ear. So there's the chamber of the vestibular reflex. Vestibule means chamber. So I can feel by torsioning different parts of the pinna of your ear where the torsions lie, and tell you whether it's part of the vertical or the horizontal axes of the semicircular canals that exist inside the ear. So this is your balancing mechanism. As you can see, we've got a little seashell there.
Is it floating in like it's bed that you lift it out of?
This is called your cochlea, and these are your semicircular canals. And these are to do with balance. So you've got horizontal and vertical aligned canals. So what happens is, inside of those is a fluid. So as we're moving around, so say we're on a ship, if we've got good equilibrium, then the information that goes to the brain would make the eyes normalise, make a fixed point on the wall, and you wouldn't get seasick.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, you feel dizzy, and that dizziness comes out as a nausea. You feel seasick. So what you've got is these are filled with fluid, full of hairs, that are monitoring second by second any movement of the head and feeding that to the brain, down to the cerebellum, and feeding input from the eyes, for the eyes to make adjustments to gimbal up or down, or defocus, or do whatever to help balance the vestibular mechanism to make a correction. And also the occiput, which is what the head sits on, at this place here, making a slight movement there, and then way down to the subtalar joint here, sending a message down, and that would make an adjustment as well. So that the normal 3 places that we're floating from are now have a restriction, might be 5% reduction in full potential. But that could result in a twisted knee, a hip that might wear out in 20 years if it's left, X, Y, and Z. Do you understand? So all of that is a loss of balance. But what we're looking at is the workplace and also the athlete. Now, when you look at the athlete, whatever potential you've got with a system that you've adapted well to, so you might have had your first subluxation in your lower spine when you fell off your bike at 7, and now you're 27. You become a top athlete in your sport. You could be a top boxer, you could be a runner, you could be a golf player, you could be a whatever athlete. Then you've reached your potential, but you haven't actually reached potential, because you've reached your potential in an asymmetric body that's not cross-patterned fully. What my aim as a coach is to do is to find those asymmetrical lines in your body, re-educate them, repattern them, have you make different visualizations that move through the three-dimensionality of that injury as a memory, and therefore give back the full potential to what we call the whole neurology, which we call proprioception. And whatever capacity you have, it'll give you another. So your vision will be more clear. You get a better three-dimensional sense, which we call the Saki. That's the Saki test. A different field of vision, different mentality, different reflexes that you're able to. Movements come from reflex action, and you've got to start to actually inhibit some of the muscular activity and just let reflexes take over and become the movement of choice. And that's your innate, really telling you how to move properly. So when you go on the alignment machine, what we're doing is taking a lot of those archaic things out by the 3 anti-gravity procedures. So as your heel is tractioned in there, it's separating the joint at the ankle from the leg bone, which stops the weight-bearing signals from going up to the head. The other part goes under the sacrum, which is the bone at the base of the spine, which sits between the two hip bones, and so that allows it to feel like it's floating in between the two bones. So again, a cessation of messages going further up to the neck. And the final piece is separates the head at the occiput, like this, and stops the signals, again, weight bearing going to the head. So with the cessation of those three, our innate, which knows where we should be in three-dimensional time and space, can start to unwind. And so muscle activity that's still hypertonic, it's still contracted and should be at rest, is still sending signals from its what we call Ruffini's endings, little nerve endings in the muscle that give the brain the idea of how much in tone it is, too tight or too slack, and should be inhibited at rest to be relaxed. But because we're in a fight or flight situation, because our occiput and our centre of gravity and our heel is under adaptation, then we're using more of a muscular system that leaves muscles still switched on, which leads to ache, leads to inflammation, leads to tightness. People stretch to try and get rid of that. It's not a stretch reflex that you're trying to get rid of. It's the result of that stretch reflex that you're trying to make the brain interpret as a better signal. So while you're on this, it's unwinding that. And then we show you various things that while you're on it, it actually is a self-therapy, that this is really the base that you're lying on. And then you do the self-therapy from that to unwind your own prescriptive anomalies in the body.
Are these for sale yet?
We're still running the prototypes, so we're doing research just to back up some of the claims that we're making. And so there's a few select people doing that as a pilot study for us at the moment.
And where can we get one when it is available?
It'll be available certainly through one of our active balance clinics approach, of which we've got an outlet throughout the country, and maybe available online with tutorials, or you could come and actually be taught how to use it in a short session to show you how to actually use it, how to get the best benefits from it. Because it's not just laying on it that gets the benefits, it's what you're doing while you're on it in this anti-gravity position.
So all the details are below?
Absolutely.